Okay, my device says 1:30, so we're going to call the policy committee meeting to order. And could we have a roll call, please, China?
Yes. Hildred?
Here.
Bentley?
Here.
Amaji?
Great. Could we, are there any changes, additions, revisions to the minutes of April 13th, the meeting of April 13th, 2026? None? Okay, so we'll accept them as prepared. And I believe we have one speaker for the member forum, China, or a couple speakers. So we're now ready to go into the member forum.
Okay, member forum. We do have a speaker today. Members are welcome to speak during the designated member forum at Rossmore, Walnut Creek, RWC board and committee meetings, either in person or via Zoom. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes and must clearly state their full name and Rossmore address before beginning. If speaking on behalf of another member, a signed consent form is required. To speak, members must submit a completed member form slip prior to the start of the forum. Member form slips and guidelines are available at the meetings. For convenience, both the guidelines and forms may also be accessed and printed in advance from the RWC board and committee meetings webpage. Please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded. By attending and participating, including during the open forum, attendees agree to and release RWC from all liability for their voice and their likeness being recorded and broadcast for any lawful purposes without compensation. First, I'd like to call up Mary England. Mary, if you'll stand at the end of the table, please state your full name and your Rossmore address.
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
Mary England, 1200 Fairlane, Suite number 8335. I would like to make a couple of comments on policy 104.3. My two comments are general. One, I think there's language that's inconsistent between policy 104.3 and the web policies. And secondly, I do not think the revision of this policy is ready for prime time. I think it needs to be reviewed for compliance with California privacy law. Second policy I'd like to have comments forward for you is on policy 302.0. The red line version of the policy was interesting to me because the purpose of the policy was to assist residents in forming and maintaining organizations formally recognized by RWC. However, the major section addresses clubs, and that's not in the title. I found that there's a dichotomy in the sections between organizations such as DSGOs and BSGOs, and there's a dichotomy between them and clubs and groups. And I think those need to be defined primarily because the major shift in this policy is to add definitions. I think that it looks like organizations are pretty much exclusively DSGOs and BSGOs, and everybody else is a club. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Jess Clark.
Hello, my name is Jess Clark and I live at 1429 Skycrest Drive, number 3. And I wasn't planning on making comments, so I'll be extremely brief. What I'm hoping from this policy committee is that you'll place on your agenda and also as a priority to look at the use of Roundup in Rossmore and other toxic chemicals. The second issue is making sure there's compliance with your contractors and your staff to, first of all, notify residents of spraying to allow us to have more information of what's being used in the community, and to provide a structure of timing, maybe of some clarity for people. There's a lot of unknowns here. So what I'm hoping is that you'll begin to consider it in your policy meetings. Thank you.
There's no member forums online. That completes our member forum.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. We have a quick chair's report before we go to unfinished business. I just wanted to clarify for everyone attending that we're here. We have a wonderful group, Leanne, Ted, and myself, and our former chair, Mary Hurt, is now termed off. So I'm the vice chair managing this meeting, and we look forward to the next meeting when we will have a newly reconstituted policy committee with possibly some of our new board members. So this is kind of a unique group today, very unique. We have a lot to review today. So I will hand it over to Ann Matola, or beginning discussion on the unfinished business.
Yes, okay, so we're gonna dive into the deep end here. Before we start talking about this, I just, if you indulge me for 1 minute, I just wanted to take a second and acknowledge that this draft that we're reviewing today was a joint effort that I think requires a little bit of comment and celebration, if you will. So I want to thank Phil Prasek. He's the president of the Sunday Dancers. And I want to thank him because he's given quite a bit of time and energy towards this draft that you see before you today. We've spent probably an hour a week since the last meeting a couple of months ago when this was on the agenda. Since the beginning of the room reservation process, Phil has been really a valuable source of constructive feedback. And I would say constructive in the best of ways. It could be very pointed, very specific, but always very professionally and civilly, in particular, delivered. And his communication with reservations, it's really been an example of the good that can happen when we all come together with a genuine desire to seek understanding and find alignment. And it's been a really remarkable process. So as we began revisiting the policies, I asked Phil if he'd be interested in working on the revisions together. And honestly, I want to say it's been a magical process. It's been really wonderful. I mean, we really have grown to respect and enjoy each other. It's been really positive and enjoyable. And as we walked through these revisions that we're going to be presenting today, we consistently found alignment because we took time to understand each other's perspectives. Phil was a really good voice as the resident and club user. And I've been trying to represent that whatever we present in policy, as staff, we need to interpret it through a practical lens of what can realistically be administered and managed. So anyway, so I just wanted to give that introduction, and that is why he's at the table, because there may be some answers which, if you have questions, there may be some things which he'll be able to answer more artfully than I.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So kind of just to give the overview of the work that's done. And so I think Mary brought up a really great point of like the different things that we're trying to cover in this. And so this is the first revision that we're bringing. And so, yeah, we need input. We need to really figure out how we're going to make this a policy that makes sense, because it does cover a lot of things. So first of all, there's a definition section, and it's probably going to be one of those things we're going to have to go back to that, I would think, when we're done with the policy, because as we go through the policy and we are just deciding what are we going to call these clubs or different organizations as we're trying to define them, we want that reflected in the definitions. There's quite a bit of work on clubs, and some of the big issues that we're trying to address here is the 80-20, the 80 resident, 20 non-resident requirement as it currently.
20%.
Yeah, 20%. As it currently is written. We wanted to talk about the formation of organizations and define that a little bit more. So we have department and board sponsored groups, and we are calling these, and maybe they need to be Gs instead of Os. So we have organization, not with any one of these. What we were trying to do is to say we have, what this policy is covering now are the different bodies of residents that are identified in some way But we're not sure how some of the ones that were, other than clubs, we have no idea how they were formed or approved. We want to make sure that's captured in this policy. And then there's a couple of things that we wanted to kind of push to another policy with the drop-in events. And with the exceptions to policy too. So that comes up where no matter what policy we write, we do have requests for exceptions to them. And that may be something treated per policy at the end of these policies, but we didn't put anything in this for exceptions at this point. So with that,
Quick question. on that.
Yes.
So you talked about the difficulty of determining residency with the 80-20.
yes,
I didn't see that addressed in the policy, so
because it was so clever. Okay, so here we go. So the conversation that I have with my peanut gallery here. So we talked about like what is, what was the intention of it, of doing this 80% member, 20% non-member. When we get the rosters, what do we do with them? And from a practical standpoint, if you look at individual members, if I count every member, and we know there are duplicates here, there's like about 20,000 members on all the rosters that we would get when we asked everybody for rosters. We don't have the capacity, right, to be able to say, is this a resident? Is this a resident? Is this a resident? And then what we saw when we were telling people, when we were telling clubs, okay, so we need to make sure your membership is no more, suddenly they got imbalanced really quick. So I think people are just adding names to rosters, and we want to make sure that, so I think what happens is when we're asking this, there's a perception out there which is not reality. We're not trying to bust clubs. We're not trying to get any clubs out of the business of doing what they do, which is really kind of keeping this vibrant community. We're just trying to figure out how to get clubs aligned with what the policy said. So in the conversation, I want to say it was this guy's bright idea as we were reading through it. It's like, if you need 20 residents to form a club, what does it matter after that? And that's something for you all to figure out, because the reason, what we put in here, if you look at under clubs, which is section A, we simply say that clubs must have a minimum membership of 20 Rossmore residents, unless otherwise exempted from the board. And it kind of applies to a lot of these things, because the activities could be the 20 residents are doing things for those 20 residents, and you guessed, sometimes the 20 residents are hosting something grander, and they get a bunch of people that are not club members. So I guess it's proposed, we're proposing that we say that a club needs to have the minimum membership of 20. If they want to give us all 600 of their members, that's really wonderful. But we're really going to look at that. We want a bona fide 20 people in Rossmore that are really doing something, for the community under the club, under the guidance of the club. Is it a radical change? I don't know.
What do you mean by change?
Well, because what we're doing is asking people to submit us rosters that show us the 80% resident and the 20% non-resident. And it's not that we don't care about the non-resident, we just want to make sure you have 20 residents that are hosting the activities of the club. Because
So I want to make sure I
we approve.
understand. I could have 20 residents and I could have 100 non-residents in
Yeah.
my club? Is that what you're
That's
saying?
what this language says to me.
But the issue is this, if we don't have any ability to really track. So, but then it goes to this. So then if you look at like what it takes to become a club, and we're changing, we want to know what is the activity, right? So if you get a group of 20 people come in and say, oh, well, we want to host concerts every Friday night at the event center, and be like, well, that's a facility for 400 people. So how are you going to, then we can have conversations of how are you going to manage the attendance, things like that. Sometimes you can tell by the rooms that they want to use, like what are they doing with that? But we're getting into something where, what you're saying, can they have 100? Yes, we do have some clubs.
Well, no,
that-
you're talking about, we're talking members. You told me I could have 20 members, but I could have 100 non-members. So I'm not talking about the
Yeah.
meeting places or anything.
Essentially.
I'm talking about, so you had, now
Okay,
my,
this is written,
so
yes.
now my problem with that
Yeah.
is that I have X number of people living in Rossmore. I have X number of people leasing or renting in Rossmore. But for them to use our facilities, we charge them a extra fee to help cover the costs of wear and tear and everything on the facilities. If you have 20 people here and 100 people here, we're not getting anything except we have to raise our budget and raise our coupon to compensate for the amount of stuff and wear and tear. So that's the only part that bothers me when you say we're not gonna put a regulation on it.
But I guess but then what's happening is there's a club, then there's an activity in how they use facilities. How facilities uses in 304.
I'm sorry, back up 1 second. I'm not talking about an activity. I'm talking about club members. You told me I can have 20 members and I can have 100 people from San Francisco joining my
But
club.
we don't know that that's not happening, Ted. Like, we have no way to manage
So
it.
maybe that's what we really have to think about, because you see what I say, when it comes to an event, people invite guests from the outside all the time. Those are guests, that's different. And they're usually one-off, one time. They're paying for something, we're getting some things. That's different. But if you're telling me that all I need is 20 people to make a club, and then I can invite 100 people from the outside, then when my club decides to have a meeting and we're all set up and all that stuff is being done and all the wear and tear on that equipment, because it's not wear and tear from 20, it's a wear and tear from 120 people.
So I think right now the challenge is how do we define and manage that? Because a club right now has to have 80-20 by policy. But that doesn't mean that any activity they conduct, they can't have, say they're a group of 20, they can't have 100 guests at every single event. There's nothing right now that says they cannot do that. So what we're trying to say is we can't really regulate that use based on the current policy. So if the interest is trying to limit how many they can bring to an event, that's one thing. But if there's an ability for a group right now just to have unlimited guests who are either listed as a non-resident member or just purely a guest, how do we manage that?
Okay, I got another example of the same thing. You have golf. Golf is only allowed to have 70 people as non-resident, sponsored non-residents to come and play golf, because our golf courses get overrun. According to your scenario, golf just came up and says, we're down on numbers. Now, we got a premier golf course. We just opened that golf course club to have their 123 members here and 600 members from the outside can come now and use our golf course.
But that's actually, no, that's different. 'Cause
On the
that's-
club days, they're gonna have a club day and they're
But
gonna
those-
take over everything.
Those memberships are not part of this club. Those memberships that people buy are facilitated by RWC, not by clubs.
So the club or individuals, they would have to give a list of who those non-resident members are and that they're guests to come through, pay the fees and use the course with the member. So like a club using any of the rooms, they put together a guest list that could be the same almost all the time, but they call them guests instead of, I think the question comes down to what kind of use do you want to let clubs have, and that dictates some policy.
Well, maybe I'm getting mixed up here because we're saying what the use of each one of the clubs are, and then we're talking about the clubs. So when you said 20 people and 100 people more from the outside can join the club, that's one thing. Now, when you talk about what the use of the club is going to be able to do, that is something else. And so I need that clarified on how the golf course men's club is a club. And I can tell you, if we open it up to whatever you want in that club is gonna grow like crazy because everybody's gonna wanna come here and play golf. So how are we going to, I just don't wanna open up that door. And then we got Now, the regular members can't even get, we sometimes have trouble
You're
getting the
talking
tea time
about
now.
golf clubs. Okay.
But that is a club. The men's club is a club. The Niners is a club.
Yeah, I was, when you, there was another thing you mentioned, which was a
So,
different.
so I just see this whole thing blowing up on the golf course, and I just want to make sure I understand how this would not happen.
Isn't that addressed by number 3?
Excuse me.
Am I mistaken? Isn't that addressed by number 3?
Yeah, because it's the sports facility. Although golf isn't listing there.
So maybe, just a suggestion, maybe we could talk a little further generally about the intention of this
Okay.
section. Just to get a little better sense, and I've read it myself too, and I've been thinking about it. And I guess the question that I have is that, is it a significant problem that clubs are not providing accurate information about their resident members and their non-resident members?
During that annual.
Yeah.
So most
About
clubs,
20%.
you would say only 20% provide accurate information?
No, or inaccurate. But it's one of those things
So
where,
that's, well.
but the problem is, then which part of the policy do you want staff to say, this doesn't apply, this does? So the issue is, and we get this a lot, is it really a problem? Well, how much of a problem is a problem? If it's not an issue, then why have it in the policy? Do you know what I mean? If it's something, or are we saying that those people, we need to bring those and make exceptions? So we're trying to do something that makes sense. This policy really is about what are the different types of organizations and what are the activities, right? And so in most clubs with memberships, you probably have the same 10 people organizing everything, anyway. And in some cases, when they start doing their functions, they do let other people that are non-members in it. If I'm all wrong with it, that's fine, but we have other things that are in here that'll come down later when we talk about what clubs need to provide. And it talks about like the type of activities. We have clubs hosting all types of activities that aren't really club activities, but they'll say so-and-so club hosting whatever the heck it is. And it's like, oh yeah, that's a club use. We call that like a transfer of use of a club to host something that's other than what the club was intended for. So, we're trying to figure out if you want us to go through the collection of the rosters, the 80-20, happy to do it. I can tell you it's a paper process more for the clubs than what we can possibly verify. That's part of it. And then when you have that list, in many cases, that doesn't mean anything anyway, because we have clubs that are saying they're 100% residents, and it's not. It's very much a 40-60.
Okay, to that, I understand the problem. But wouldn't it, in my mind, wouldn't it be better to keep that ratio 80-20 as the standard? Because we're asking them to be honest, number one.
That's
And if
true.
they're not honest, you have something to go back to. Like if you
But
suddenly.
what I would say is,
Let me finish.
okay,
If you notice that they're not being honest, you have a measurement to go back to and hold them accountable to that amount. And then ideally, in the future, maybe this process would be online and there would be an automatic check of membership.
but I would say, I'm happy to do that. But I would ask that you don't ask us to look at
verify.
policies and then go to what is the consequence, I guess. So we say, you don't meet this, then they go through the whole appeal process. So I think part of it is we can do that. But it seems like it puts staff in the bad guy position of holding a policy that ultimately we're not gonna enforce. So that's part of it. If we know it's gonna get enforced,
But you are the gatekeeper.
hasn't worked so well for us so far. So we're really trying to make it work for what the use is and what the nature is. Happy to, but we just need to make sure we have backing for the board when we go and say, so-and-so consistently has been submitting this, or they play the game, they're submitting this, but they have a gate list on the same day. But the roster says it's 200 people, but we got 200 people coming through the gate on a standing gate list. Would we be able to submit that and just say they get their club status taken away?
So
Well, I think there would be a process of being the gatekeeper, a warning, you know.
Because then it makes us enforcement, which we don't want to do.
one of the things that might be beneficial before we kind of proceed with this further is to, before we look at the policy itself, the red line, or even past, is have a discussion about the interests of the committee and the board as it relates to, we started down this path, but before we get into the policy, so what is the intent of a club? What do we really want in terms of resident, member, non-resident, guest? And how do we want to measure that and manage that? Because until we really know that, it's hard for Ann
We're
to
guessing.
put together some recommendations on how we can manage the various tools that we have. So I would recommend we pause on this, and then next time what we could do is bring back just a discussion with some bullets. We started down that path before of, let's understand what it is your interests are related to clubs in general.
I'd be okay with that, but what do you do now? Like if you find out a club is not abiding by the rules, what's the process?
We've had to put things on, what we do is we try to work with them to get in compliance. But we put everything on hold until this appeal process was put together with, that just recently went through. So, I mean, we have, some clubs that we've had to repeatedly talk about, we need to get you in compliance, but we may start taking things.
So you have a new appeal process?
No, like we had to clarify what the appeal process was with the board.
So it's just policy 100.
Policy 100.
Okay.
Because there was like, what do you call it? They were inconsistent.
Right.
It was
The whole thing needs to be
It was,
revised.
there's inconsistent and conflicts of it.
I understand.
So,
Yeah.
can I just make a comment, and that possibly Ted wants to say something too? So I think one of my overarching interests is that the contributions financially that our residents are making so that these facilities are available and possibly used by non-residents, but that our residents really are getting the first chance, and we're not necessarily, I hear people saying, well, they're coming, they don't live here, they get to use everything, they're using all our toilet paper. An interest I have is that how we're managing our resident clubs or organizations and how we integrate non-residents really is not having our residents' contributions or money pay for the benefit of others. Now, maybe that's, and I'm just saying that out loud. I don't know that you can reflect that, but for me, that's a big concern about how we're using the amenities that we provide and how they're being used by people who don't live here, who aren't paying anything. And is that something, to me, that's a priority to look at that.
This is a huge philosophical question.
So maybe,
That debate has been going on here since
correct. So I'm
in
not,
the inception. Because on one hand, you have the argument of, I'm a resident, we have a group of 20 of us, we're paying, we want to be able to bring our guests and friends in to enjoy it with us so we can be successful in accomplishing this. On the other hand, you have the discussion of, well, if those folks are coming in to enjoy it with them, they should be either contributing. They don't have access to everything.
Right.
It's just you're coming in to enjoy it with the group during a specific event. Always a debate. We have that with Family Swim and with other things. People, want to be able to enjoy it with their families or their friends or organization. Where's the line?
So then in a way, from my point of view, we need to, one of the parameters I'd like to see in this policy is balancing that somehow. And it may be absolutely critical and hard to do, but how do we balance those, how do we balance those interests?
I think we and need to kind of have that guidance from you of where do you want us to kind of slant it, the policy, because it could be written very much in both different directions, right? It could be written to be very much restrictive, and then it's what does it take to manage that restriction, or it could be more open and club user-friendly, I guess, or available to others. So we kind of, before we can give you the direction and how it can be managed and what would the cost of managing that be, what are the options? I think we need to hear from you a little bit more on.
There were some comments, if I may, regarding costs, regarding wear and tear on facilities, and that RWC is getting nothing from the non-residents. The service fees set up based upon the number of chairs that are requested, and those are tiered.
Right.
And so if you have like 1 to 50 people, it's $25. If you have from 51 to 100, it's more, and so forth. Take the case, speaking from dance club experience, one dance club using the fireside room would have only fewer than 50 residents. However, when they invite their friends in to enjoy a dinner dance in the evening, that kicks up to the next year, and that additional money for the wear and tear goes into the RWC coffers. Similarly, another club would have probably, in the 51 to 100 range for a dance, and if they go ahead and include some of their friends, that gets kicked up to the next year, and again, additional revenues kick into the RWC coffers. So in that regard, I think the wear and tear is being covered. And hopefully that's, I don't know about others, but if there's a question about that, I can certainly be happy to try and answer it, go away and do more some research.
That's a good point.
It is, but I think that, with anything, you can find a loophole in something and take advantage of a situation like that. Most clubs I'm in are exclusive. They have nobody from the outside. But their events have guests.
Sure.
And the clubs charge extra for a guest. Why does a club see the value in charging extra for a guest to come in? There's no reason for them to do that. They charge, let's say it's $45, and if you have a guest, it's $50. Clubs do this all the time.
I can answer that.
And yet the club gets the benefit of the extra $10 and they keep it, and it doesn't come back to us. But we have the people who utilize our employees, and at the gate, they got to go through all the extra work. We have all this, there's impact to the community all the way along with that coming in. And so I'm not against guests. I'm not against guests coming in, but maybe what we should have is clubs, and you have 20 people in your club to make a club, and that's it. That's fine. 20, 100, 1,000, however many's in your club, that's your club is of residents. And if you have something, you can invite someone from the outside. If they invite someone from the outside, they pay an extra price, which comes back to RWC, whatever it is. If you have 100 people for a dance and you're going to invite 100 people more, then that is X amount of dollars, say $10 on top of each one of those people. That is on top of the bill to rent the room. And now everything's covered and it's clean. It's clean. We don't have to think, oh, who's not telling us the truth on who many club members they have in that kind of a piece. And I think it's great that if we could talk about we got to define all this club stuff, because there's a number of clubs that have sub-clubs that are not anything like the club that they're in.
Yeah.
And so we have that going on too. And how does that get developed? Yet they're renting rooms under this name. Now, if I'm not, tell me if I'm wrong on this. X club, real club, rents the Fairway room, and they have 40 people in there. I don't know what the room holds, 60 or something. Let's just say they have 40 people. I am gonna have a birthday party for my wife and I want to rent the room. Is there a difference in the cost between what the club gets to do and what I have to pay?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
And we're
big,
not gonna do the same thing for a guest? Yet we will punish our members for doing the same thing? That's where I feel like there's a big mix-up here. So I think I'm all for a club is a club in Rossmore. Here's the members. You need 20 to be a member. And then I don't care about your events. We can work out the event piece. You kind of understand what I'm saying?
So I
Because
think
you're already
we,
punishing me for being a member because I want to use this club room by myself. But if I went to one of the clubs I'm in and said, I need this room, you book it for me, and now I have my party without paying the extra cost.
So
You
this
raised
is-
earlier a point regarding clubs collecting extra money from the non-residents who come in.
Yes.
In terms of these
I'm just gonna call them, just
Yeah.
change it to guests. Everybody's a guest. There's a club and guests.
We can call them guests. The reason that they currently charge, and that none of the money goes back to RWC, very good point. The money does not go back to RWC. However, in order to have events with, for example, live bands, which again, speaking for the dance clubs, many of the dances, dinner dances, have live bands. People would probably not be very interested, residents would not be very interested in coming, or not as interested in coming, if they didn't have a live band. The money goes towards covering the costs. It's not like the club is,
Nobody's
just
making money.
building up its coffers. A lot of well, at least the clubs that I'm familiar with,
I'm familiar with a number of them that have huge coffers and getting bigger.
that's an issue. But for the dance clubs, I'm familiar with the financials of at least 3 of them, intimately familiar, and they struggle.
Could
See,
I?
that's a choice, so
Yeah.
dance
Yeah.
club.
So, and if I could just, so there's the club, informing the club and trying to define their activities so we can say, nope, that's not what your club is approved for, if you will. Which we tried to include to this.
another part.
The other one is, and so we're saying like 20 members. It would be good to have all the resident members of it. Because then when it comes to room use, if it exceeds the numbers or maybe the number of members time, plus 20%, whatever that 20% thing is, that's when you can talk about a different formula, dare I say, for the use of the rooms.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So, because
I wanna understand
so
I understand.
So you're-
I'm trying to map it out.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So you're saying, okay, if we do away with the 80-20 policy,
Yeah.
then when they hold an event, recreation is gonna evaluate the percentages at that event based on the gate.
Yeah, maybe. And I don't know at this
Could
point.
even
I'm
be
just.
planned.
Okay, so for each event, I need to understand your perspective. So for each event that club holds, you're gonna do an evaluation of, is this balance between resident attendance and non-resident attendance? Like, is it overpoweringly non-resident, or you're gonna make that distinction for an event and then
I think
what
that's something
happens
that,
after
so
that?
here, because we need to receive the guest lists.
Right.
There are always workarounds to that too, by the
I
way.
know.
Because we need to receive the guest list, because we enter it to dwelling wide. If you know that you're doing something at the event center and you're gonna use all 400, you're setting up for 400, so you can only have 80 at the guest list. As a non-resident guest list, right? So you could do things like that, where if you're using this room, you can have no more than, based on the occupancy that you say is gonna be there. There are ways we can get to that, to track that
Okay,
by the use. And I don't know if that's the solution, so let's not react to that quite yet. But it's like, so I don't know that that's it, but I think that is easier to manage since it's something administrative we do anyway. We touch and we touch the list, we have to enter it in so we can take a look
okay,
at
I
it.
get that.
We can handle that based on the use versus the rosters that we receive, where it would be good to know who the residents are. I would love to know all the residents that are members of it.
Right.
I don't know that I care as much about the non-residents.
Okay, so how much of a burden is it on recreation to I mean, are you gonna look at every guest list for an event
We have
to
to.
decipher
We do,
ratios?
we have to do that.
So is
Just to
it the
enter into dwelling
ratio that matters, or is it the occupancy
The
of
occupancy, I
the
think.
room? So if a club has a membership of 100 residents, they could use rooms that occupy 100, somewhat based on what they do. But if they come then and say, we want to use the event center, we want to set up for 400 people, then we know that they are having an event with X number of outside people. There could be management of that. But if it's consistently every time they want to have the event center, maybe that's an issue.
Okay, and you're gonna know that by their application for that event.
For
I
the
think it's
event.
by
Yeah.
what is
Reservation. yeah.
reservation are they having, what is their occupancy, what is their setup? Kind of triggers that, that's beyond the 100 members that, which is may be perfectly fine. It's just there's a fee associated
Yeah,
with it, or somehow it's managed. That's a whole nother kind of discussion, you know.
But I think what Jeff is mentioning and what I'm thinking about too, we may not get there today, but you, Ann, talked a lot more about focusing on their activities than their actual membership. So if it's 20, if it's whatever it is, I think a way to look at this is what activities do they want to do? What facilities do they want to use? And how do we manage that use so that it's most effective for all the different kind of groups that we have, and also look at this whole subgroup thing where groups are doing things, that's a whole nother issue. But if we focus more on the activities and how we can manage the activities based on their membership and then how many people they're bringing in, and they have to estimate that before they're having an event. And I don't know how many people are not doing that accurately, I don't know, but then you do, though, you have people checking how many people are at events, so even you could do it behind, after the event, if they weren't up front before the event. But anyway, what I hear is that you really want to have more of a framework from us, because we don't want you doing a lot of work and then we're just gonna say, hey, that's going nowhere. I think the response about the number, to me, it's a response about this whole equity thing. And that's definitely, we can't, we have to try to balance that. But I'd really like to think about it in terms of what events are they putting on, and what's the what residents are attending, and what's the impact on non-residents attending. And I think I've said several times, looking at these incremental fees. And I know a lot of people don't want to think about that, but I think we have to think about that. I mean, in terms of what we might want to think and be able to address and justify to residents, and how you could manage it.
And when I'm talking about, when people, it's a big deal. And I think Jeff is probably right. We need to really define this thing about a club first before we can start, I just think we got to go there first. And like I said, I don't care if the club only has 20 and they have 200 at an event, but I want to make sure that we get what we should get from that on the guests coming in. Here's what happens. A guest could be to a club. It could be another member from another area, could be a guest, right? It's a guest to the club. If they have fun, the club won't be at 20. The club will be at 30, at 40, at 50, depending on how fun the club is. The membership will start growing up on the membership piece. People move here because we have families all over the place. So we're going to have guests coming in, and I get that. But if we're having guests coming into an event, it's more than just setting up chairs and tables. It's the woodpeckers eating away the side of the building that we got to pay for. And we have to take care of that, and that costs us money. Where are we going to get the money for that? We have to budget for all these different things to keep the building looking correct all the time. So I'm looking more than tables and chairs. People pay per person, I get it, for tables and chairs being put out. We need 12 tables with 8 chairs at each one. They send in their diagrams. You pay for that, right? I get that. That's a set cost. I don't want to mess with that. That's fine. But what I'm talking about, there's other things in the building that needs a maintenance. The $200,000 on the projector and sound system that we had to redo in there. Where did that come from? So there's other things that happen that we have to figure out and plan money for. And I think a guest should pay more. The incentive for a member of Rossmore going to a function and having to pay extra and go, you know what, I really enjoy this. If I'm a member, I get to pay less. And so now they become a member, and every function they get to go to, they go and they pay less now. But someone from the outside goes, if I moved in here and lived here, I get to pay less. And then it's an add-on for people to come in and come into Rossmore. So that's a marketing tool to be able to get them come in. But I think guests, it just should be straight. Here, clubs are members and guests are guests, and we can eliminate a lot of that verbiage in the beginning.
So again, I think we need to kind of hear collectively what that interest is. If the committee is coming back to us with direction that we're looking more towards cost recovery or balance from non-residents, we need to evaluate that. We also need to give you some information about how that is possible to even manage or collect. And then you're gonna hear from a whole lot of interested folks that wanna come talk to you about how that's gonna impact their club. So we need to make sure we leave time for that kind of to take place, because we don't wanna just spring something completely different on the community. So I think you probably wanna go to step one of let's kind of define what it is the interest of the committee is, and then what are those implications of that? What are the options related to that?
And the other thing is I'm sitting over here all by myself, kind of saying this kind of stuff. Maybe it's just me. And maybe it's no, if we did a straw vote, maybe nobody wants to go on with that and they want to continue with this. So we should probably think about that also.
I think you're saying it differently. I think you're saying it differently. I mean, Susan has talked about tiered fees. You're kind of reading my mind about there's a way in the way, basically when we look at the facility application to manage it that way. So I think that there's more similarities. You're just looking at the problem from different angles. So we can try to start putting some of the issues. So would you think we would just do a working session brainstorming the issues at the next meeting so we can just kind of put them all
Particularly,
on?
You're gonna have a new
committee.
Committee as
Yeah,
well,
right.
so it'd probably be good
Okay.
to start from the
Maybe I can
infancy.
Well, yeah.
Maybe I'll stay on
Yeah,
that.
well,
That's part of this.
yeah, I mean, we're gonna figure out, so who's gonna be on here?
Are you talking about, or both of you talking about looking
What is it?
at a particular policy, or are you creating another policy? Like what, that brainstorming that you're talking about?
No, just to kind of figure out where we're going, right?
Values.
So where we're going, because I think,
But the problem is we've been brainstorming for like 3 months.
Yeah.
So.
I agree
Yeah,
with that, but
I know it's necessary. I take back that
or
comment.
maybe just starting
Nasty
with
thing.
charting out this, right? So you're talking about something with fees. This has nothing to do with the fees we charge. When we get to the facility use and it articulates it, so maybe I need to do something to show the thread of concerns.
This does have something to do with it because of the way the club is organized.
But it doesn't matter now, Ted. So practically, it's not gonna make any difference.
Yeah.
The issue is when the club of 20 or 30, because I think what we care about, who are our club members, right? And maybe we want to increase that number. Are 20 people enough to be able to prioritize yourself, to use any room and to do parties so it could be a different number. And we can give you, it may be good to see what's the average size of the club, what are the ones that do smaller functions. Because there are some that just gather and do things like book clubs, and those are rather small groups, right? But most of them are bigger numbers. So maybe we can come in and just say, typically clubs are about this size of residents, right? And some of the things that they're applying to do, we'd like to be able to take a better snapshot. and to say, well, what is, and we can talk about how the gate list changed things. I mean, we've done this in the past, but we can do it again, right? So, I mean, we can do that, because when you see from a practical standpoint, what you'll be able to see, it's not the club or their activity, it's how they use certain facilities that impact the
And I
influx
think
of
that-
residents.
I think how the clubs, no matter what their size is, are using facilities is important for us to
Yeah.
understand, and you can track that. And you see who's using what appropriately or not
You can, Jen.
appropriately, and I would just like to note, as we did already, that we are gonna have a new committee at the June meeting. And even though we've talked about it before, I think it would be good to have, you could kind of summarize where
Okay.
we've been, and then we can get their input or some of our input if we stay on, so that we don't want you and anyone else who's assisting and giving us valuable time to not feel like, you know, we're giving you the direction you need to go in a direct, to move forward.
So my whole thing is, I hear is that we get the information and there's no way to verify it. You know, they're showing the 80-20 rule, you know, they're showing the whole thing and stuff, but we don't have time to verify it and stuff. To me, as soon as I hear that, I get concerned about how tough it is to run the business. I want more exact numbers, KPIs that we just went through. We need to know what these numbers are and be able to verify and make sure they're right. So I don't want to open up something that is going to create more stress. And I just see this as more stress. And that's why I said, I think it should be, we need to define a club. And I'm not against having guests come in. I'm not against any of that stuff. But why does an outside person have to be a member of a club in here? They can be a guest when they have the events
I
and
see what you're
stuff.
saying.
Why do they have to do that? There's no reason for it. You want to be a member here, move in and be a member, and then everything is fine. But you can, any club,
So we wouldn't recognize them by policy as a club guest?
yeah, it's just.
They're either guest
you're
as a
gonna have
guest,
come in.
guest, okay.
You'll have a guest come in. But if they're using a facility, I'm gonna be pushing for, I think that they should not pay the same thing that everybody else does. And if the facility, if the club is going to have an event that costs money, that person pays extra. But the matching the club price, let's say it's 40, if it's 50 for the guest, $10 of that comes back to RWC.
So just a clarifying question. Anytime there's a fee that might be new or changed or whatever, is it the case that that would have to be approved by the board as part of the fee schedule?
I think that we gotta talk the whole thing through yet, but because I'm just laying out the big structure.
Yes.
But I think that we have to kind of think, I think we have to really think about what Ann said about, okay, maybe we need to relook at what is a club.
Well, could it be said regarding, if you want to charge an extra fee for a non-resident, could it be said that any extra fee for a non-resident will be per the board-approved fee schedule? And then the discussion of whether they include that or not, how much it should be, would be there as opposed to in this policy, other than a reference in fact.
Well,
Yeah, we wouldn't want to
Yeah,
have
we're not even-
$600.
No,
We're
yeah.
not, it's, the fees don't.
So the reason I'm bringing this up, I'm in the middle of this right now.
Any of these policies, something to say reference to the board-approved fee schedule.
I'm in an event with a club that's happening right now. It's happening all the time for 16 weeks. And they wanted to charge $50 a person for this club. And I says, well, why? And they said, well, because last year we charged 40, so everything's going up, we should charge 50 this year. So I said, well, why don't you find out what's in the bank account on this particular event? There's $1,500 in the bank account on this event. They've been accumulating over the years. And I'm thinking, no, we're not gonna charge anything. So I charged $5 this year to the same people who had to pay $40 last year, and it's a huge event. It's gonna be fun and everything, but we only had to spend $5.
Right.
Clubs make money on this and it goes in the coffers. And I'm not gonna throw out names, but I can mention a number of clubs that have this right now.
right. Well, go ahead, Leanne, and then I'm gonna move us on, because we do have other business we have to try to handle.
I
this
like going back to
afternoon.
the club thing.
Just to sum it up,
Yeah,
we're gonna do this brainstorming, which is good. would it benefit you to go through 302 before that? Or is 302 so dependent on that brainstorming that we should let it go?
I mean, we didn't get past.
We're still in for.
I have a lot of
We didn't get
questions
past
about
82, right?
DSO, the DSO, yeah.
Yeah, and I think in order for that to even make sense and have the conversation, let's do a review, which should be quicker, and then we can jump into that next.
Okay,
How about that? Because hopefully there'll be some continuity with some of the
With
committee.
302?
yeah.
Yeah, no, a review, I think a review of the issues as they apply
The
to.
issues, I think, are, you know,
It's because it's gonna specifically, we can talk, I can give you some metrics that'll help with the decision-making on 302. I'll put something together.
And while we're doing it, we look at it
It's like
to
just
make
math.
sure KPIs would work easily with it when you go back into it.
all right.
One last thing, if I may, which is if you want to measure the number of non-resident attendees at any given event, what's I think most important is the number that passed through the gate. Not who's on the guest list, but the numbers that pass through the gate that say they're going to the event as a non-resident.
Yeah, I think we're already.
We're supposed to
Is that
be-
something that we can measure? Because we
Yeah.
need to get that.
So,
I mean, and plus
Yeah.
you're supposed to be providing that before the event.
no, I'm talking about the clubs can provide it, that's the invited guest list.
Yeah, but
But not all
Understand
of
that
those
means-
people necessarily come through the gate and come to the event.
I think
Well,
before we get to there,
let's-
Not all
let's do that
yeah,
first
we can
piece
talk about
first
that
on the
another-
clubs.
Okay, well, it's a good start. I saw the policy and I was like, wow, this is a lot to look at. So thank you very much for all your work on this. And I know now for unfinished business, and you were gonna talk about the revised privacy policy for Rossmore websites. And then you also have new business, so.
Yes.
just for notes.
Hold on, take care.
That's 104, hold on. Okay. So we went over this at the last meeting. The big changes with the privacy policy that we're putting in there is the fact that we have the real estate forms that are being submitted directly to the real estate companies. We need to address that personal information. The social media platforms that have been added, so we need to put that in. The testimonial videos. Also, the personal identifiable information from the third-party service providers, which include things like Dwelling Live and NetSuite. And then the Your Rights sections, which is strengthening the compliance with the California Civil Codes. There were 3 revisions that you asked that we make with the privacy policy at the last meeting. That was to add online to the privacy policy so that it distinguished it more from policy 104.3, which we've done. And then to change, of course, in the one line to please note. And then to separate out the line, users can request that their data not be shared or be removed from our social media pages by emailing web@rossmore.com. So those 3 changes were made, and now this is where things stand with the privacy policy. Are there any additional questions or requested changes?
Any requested changes? You've made the ones we requested.
I
Any
made the ones you
additional
requested.
questions on that? So, I'm sorry, I'm not, do we need a motion to refer this now to the board? Or is it ready for referral?
If you're ready to proceed,
Yeah.
we're ready to.
Yeah, so would someone like to provide a motion to move the privacy policy, recommend approval of the revised privacy policy to the board?
I move to recommend to the board that those revisions be made to the online privacy policy of Rossmore.com, myrossmore.com, Rossmore News, and Rossmore TV.
Great.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Could we have a roll call vote, China?
Yes, Hildred,
Yes?
Bentley,
Yes.
Maji?
Yes.
Okay, unanimously, motion is approved.
Great.
All right.
So now we'll get to our new business, and that's also revision, policy 104.3.
So Leanne asked at the last meeting if we could make a small revision to this policy in order to add in the fact that we have done the privacy policy. Just to note that we do have the privacy policy on our websites. So this was done in accordance with our lawyer. Again, so there's a little bit of lawyer speak with this. And again, it just outlines that we've done this in accordance with California Privacy Rights Act and what is included in the privacy policy that the board would then enact. So we would need to do the privacy policy first and then do this one.
So you're recommending that we have the board approve the privacy policy first before we bring this to the board?
Correct. So
Can it be done at the same meeting?
it probably could be done at the same
Oh,
time, as long as we do the privacy
first and
policy
second?
first,
Okay.
and then you would go ahead and adopt this one second.
Right. And then you have added this language about compliance with the California Privacy Rights Act, so
That's the lawyer.
yeah, well, that's okay. But there was a question about our complying with that Privacy Rights Act, so I'm assuming the lawyers
Yes.
looked at that and believes that we do.
Correct.
All right, so then could we have a recommendation to the RWC board to approve revised policy 104.3 after or subsequent to the proposed approval of the privacy policy?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ted.
And I'll second.
All right, Leanne seconds.
Okay,
You ready for a vote?
ready for a vote? Hildred?
Yes.
Bentley?
Yes.
Maji? Unanimously approved,
There
motion
we go. All right, now we're on to the next item, which is another
Oh, this is easy.
easy.
Oh, this will be easy peasy.
Yeah.
I do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. But this is a little bit more straightforward. Okay. Should I go?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I just, because I think we do have
Yes.
some questions and, well, we're doing okay on time. I didn't mean to
Yeah.
rush it. Well, we're supposed to be done by 3. Okay.
Right, so this item is the creation of some guest rules for access and use of the pickleball facilities. I want to thank Hal Cushions, who isn't here, and Frank Reynolds, who, by the way, has been a through line since I've been here for the construction of the project, like getting the design docs, like through to the policy. And so we spent time together, putting together the rules, and they very much follow the format of some of the other courts that are used, even, there's some similarities in language. If you'll notice in the staff report, we do talk about expiring 106.2 for Creekside tennis courts, because it's not used per that rule, by the way, so we
Anymore, yeah.
didn't, I started to redline it, and I was like, there's really no point in doing it, because it was totally,
But tennis understands we're not doing anything with them per se. It's just the old Creekside courts that was
Yeah, that was a
designated for
standalone.
tennis.
it was standalone for
Okay.
tennis, and it
We
talked
don't want
about,
to create,
correct.
okay.
Right, so for this one, similar to the other court sports, it recognizes the pickleball club having day-to-day responsibilities of the courts, and you read through it as the schedule organized matches, tournaments that are in coordination with RWC Recreation, which will be very important for the new facility in particular, because of its adjacency to the event center. They monitor and enforce player compliance with pickleball facility rules and serve in an advisory capacity to staff in matters related to the facility. All of the policies that have club affiliations do make a statement that membership of that club is an individual choice and is not a condition of use for the facilities. And then we always like to state that we can close the facility if we need to, or parts of it for maintenance or cleaning. So then the general rules. It's nice that the red line has no red on it because it's new, right? Actually, let me do something in case we need to change it. So
Can you explain how the rules came about?
So the rules came about because they're non-existent. And for any of our facilities, we have rules that are for resident and guest use. So it's keeping in practice with the way we manage the use of all of our sports facilities.
For clarification for residents, there's policies.
Yes.
But rules are a separate category.
Yeah, and I don't know why we call them rules. There may be somebody may have some history about that, but the different like the tennis courts, the pools,
Facility.
any of those facilities have rules. Like the sports facilities have rules.
I just asked that because we hardly ever talk about rules.
Yeah, this is true. Okay. So some of the general rules, so the courts are for the use of residents and their guests only. And guests, of course, must always be accompanied by your resident sponsor for the entire time of play. We'll have a sign-in at the facility. Residents and guests do need to sign in at the facility. There's a 15-minute time limit for drilling if others are waiting to play. We require proper court shoes with non-marking soles. No dogs or pets are allowed in these facilities. We ask players to return equipment to the proper place when finished. Number 7, smoking, food and drink other than water or sport drinks are not permitted within the fenced court area. No glass containers of any kind are permitted. We want to make sure that it's really clear that the pickleball club or anyone may not charge fees for the use of any pickleball facility, and commercial activities conducted by resident guests or club is prohibited in the facility. So then we like the name of the Dollar Pickleball Facility versus the Event Center Pickleball Facility. I don't know, it makes it seem more quaint.
It's identifiable by area.
Yes.
Yeah. I do have a question, number 9. I just need an explanation, what does commercial activity mean? What does that imply?
For instance, you can't have a vendor come and set up like I was gonna say paddle ball, forgive me.
Selling merch or whatever?
Yeah, demo days are different than like people that coming out there like to sell merchandise. Sometimes clubs will do that as a club activity
So
directly
if a
to their club,
person,
but they can't advertise it into the community.
okay, but just an example, the club has a person there on a certain day who owns a sports shop with a lot of paddles to come out so that they could try out different paddles and decide which ones they're gonna buy. Is that a yes or a no for that?
I believe we have that as long as it's not advertised. It has to be direct to the club
Right,
members.
yeah, okay.
Okay, that might need to be specified in
Clarification.
the rule. And how does that differ from golf having vendors come periodically?
So that is the golf shop, the pro shop there.
Managed by the golf shop.
That's actually a golf shop thing, it's not a golf club thing.
Falls under pro shop?
And can I make a wordsmith thing?
Yep.
Players will return equipment. That's state's intention, not a
Must.
requirement.
Would you like
Should be
must?
must.
So you're good with 9 being the written way it is, or do we need
No,
to change
how do
something?
we, strictly prohibited, clubs may invite vendors that, how can we say that? Because we explain it so regularly. I'm trying to put it in policy language.
If you said just commercial activities open to the public are open to,
Clubs only, club only for club members?
Well, why would you say club members when the facility belongs to RWC?
Yeah. Isn't the,
so
Yeah.
if the club
don't have a
is
business of it.
hosting something for its members within the entity. It can be for their members, but they can't have somebody come in and basically run a business or make money
Yeah.
off of
For
the
anybody that
RWC
comes in.
facility.
Yeah, we'll have to send all those paddles back.
For example, a club may have in a fireside room, a vendor come in
Yeah.
and do something specific benefit for that club, but they can't just open it up for that person to sell Amway.
So an example might be, a long time ago, we had a member who used to show up and he had a business that he was selling paddles and he'd go down there to sell paddles there. You can't do that.
Yeah, you're
Okay, that
basically
makes
using
sense.
our facility to make money.
Yeah.
Would this work? Clubs may allow vendor.
Look at that. You see it already?
Yeah, but, okay, the club is gonna advertise it to its members. So,
What if you said publicly advertised or something like that?
I think you guys should get rid of that.
Oh,
You want to say scheduled demos? Or no, with that, it probably doesn't matter.
I mean, we don't ask that of other, I mean, some people will ask, but we don't ask about it.
all right, tell me about the advertising though, because you made that as a stipulation
Yeah.
and it's not in the rule. So,
It's really publicly advertised, because then that's opening it up to everybody for that vendor to make money. It's kind of like sometimes like a club will bring in like an instructor for their club members, but that instructor can't then, like he'll do, some of the dance clubs will do it, sometimes they bring an instructor, right? To provide dance lessons for their club members, but that instructor can't then open it up and just be a dance
I
instructor.
give
for
lessons
everyone.
outside if you want to
So
come and
that-
start
So
advertising
it's a
your
club
business.
activity, it has to be a club activity, it's just in that direct, like in the audience is the
so
club.
the vendor can't advertise.
Correct.
Okay, maybe add that.
Well,
Or is that,
it's the
is
same,
that an
because you can't,
overarching policy?
kind of the
in
same.
Rossmore?
well, we have commercial activity, so put that on the list, policy committee.
No, I think I'd have to look and quote it off the top of my head, but in general, you're not permitted to use RWC facilities just to come in and make money. Like you can't come down to the fitness center as an outside personal trainer and just start using our facility. Same kind of thing here, but yet a club can bring somebody in for the benefit of their club.
I will say part of the distinction though, just to kind of, I'm trying to think about other clubs that do this, they don't do that in a sports facility. So. Do they?
Some do.
I can't think of any. I mean, I know golfers do it, but that's.
So would
like
a
the front shop.
would a commercial activity be someone going down and charging money for training?
Yeah, so you can't
So-
just say,
so-
I'll teach you pickleball for, $50 an hour at this facility.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
That may or may not have happened, and that may or may not have been told to that person, you can't do that anymore, but I'm just thinking maybe, does that, something like that have to be written in there on that same line of being
Well, I think
commercial?
that's what it states, I think.
No resident can.
Why don't we just do by resident or guest and take out this? I mean, I can't say it's been a problem, but we always hear people tell us of people that do this, but again, we don't have any way to enforce.
But I'm not sure that you want to take out your,
Want to keep it in or out?
because of, they may have a demo of paddles or club or shoot,
Why don't we just do by any resident or guest? I mean, I actually found a non-resident that somehow was getting in here and they had a whole website where they were giving pickleball lessons at Creekside. It stopped. But I mean, that's what we're trying to prohibit.
Yeah,
That's really
really.
what we're trying to prohibit.
Wow, I know.
Sometimes. All right. So do you think it needs that? Or is it better without it and we just worry about the
I
non-club?
kind of like that in there.
What if you did vendor sponsored by the club may be exempt? Is that what you're talking about? Only vendors that are sponsored by the club? Is that what you're trying to do, is limit
Yeah, but we
it
wouldn't
to-
want, but I think like then what does that mean? Like, I don't want someone just to be able to set up as a concession. So my concern is I would hate for anyone club suddenly to think, I mean, the membership right now has been phenomenal to work with, but I could see somebody somehow saying, but we are sponsoring them, but it's more of a concession with them present every day. It's that type of loophole that somebody may, what is this? My screen just
I think we just need to replace the word demo with maybe services, so it's broader. Demo is kind of exclusive
Very
to
specific
one.
to equipment.
Would it help if there was a date on it? Meaning there's like,
Like
no more than 2 times a year? That way there can't be someone who's trying to make money all the time or 1 time a year or
The
something.
club is basically giving up their time to have this person or persons or event to come do that. I think the club is gonna monitor
Yeah.
their ability to do that.
I think that's okay.
Simmer on that.
What do you think about it? I'm just watching the time here.
Okay.
And, I think, I'm just gonna step back, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna be channeling Dwight. And I have to say that this outlines rules for both the new dollar pickleball facility and the Creekside courts. So this assumes that Creekside courts will continue to be used for pickleball play.
I have a question mark on that
We
too.
haven't made that decision.
Can I just make
Okay,
a,
all right.
can I just make a comment on
Yeah.
why it's here?
Yeah.
So we currently have no rules in place
Mhm.
for Creekside Court for pickleball.
Okay,
We have no determination on the courts, so you wouldn't think that anything happens until we decide what to do with Creekside courts. So in the meantime, we wanted to propose something, and this is staff, by the way, not anybody from the pickleball club. We wanted to do something to really shore in the play there, to ensure that this doesn't become like an expansion of the bigger functions, tournaments and whatnot. So if you were to read it, it's really trying to control the play that happens at those courts until such a time that a determination is made. It is on the capital project to take a look at options.
Given that, do you need to specify that these rules kick in after the opening of the new facility? There's no line.
I don't think we'll have
I
this
don't think it's gonna
through
be
the
done, we're talking
board
about,
before.
this couple months.
so
We
the
don't know
board
when we're
has
gonna
to
have
approve
this.
the rules. too.
Yeah. Yeah, the board would have to, yeah.
So in a way, I mean, what you just said was very informative, because right now, we have nothing, so that could be a liability, but you're
Yeah.
gonna have people saying, well, what does this mean, and that's on the capital plan.
Yeah.
I just think you have to, be proactive in saying, we're doing this because we don't have anything in place. It doesn't mean that this will be in place forever, just something
Right.
like that. And then my other question about it was, we're still gonna be having gym use for
Yeah,
pickleball.
that's the question I
So
had too.
does the gym use have to get addressed at all?
So we don't, so the way any of the space used by clubs at the fitness center is managed now, we're not gonna open that Pandora's box, because we're still like riding the wave with room reservations. That's gonna be a whole nother cast of characters and comments, okay? But what we have been doing is meeting with the clubs annually to talk about the schedule for the next year and working with how you're really trying to move quite a bit of the training that happens to the new facility. And so it's going to free up space, but what we want to do is, and we do have a need to grow some classes, but we also want to see the gym in use. So we're going to be meeting to do some incremental changes But that'll happen.
But we
It's
don't
part of our
have
annual
rules
process.
specific to an individual activity within the fitness center.
No.
It's
Oh, okay.
covered just by
I'm
the
so
fitness
sorry.
center.
That's what I know. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, okay.
The fitness center rules kind of cover how
Okay.
it's managed. in
And
general.
You'll be.
in the pickleball rules that they have for utilizing the gym is good enough, that
Yeah.
we just go with those.
They just go with club rules while they're
rules.
using
Yeah,
it,
it's
and we
not
just give them time.
Pickleball specific rules in the fitness center.
No, they're just about not going in when it's not your
Put that
time,
in
let the
staff.
other ones finish out, it's
Okay.
those kind of
That's
rules,
not
so they're
right.
respecting the other people that's in
Would
there.
understand.
And that's within the club that they have those, so.
So for the dollar facility, the courts will be available for play, 8 AM to 6 PM. And all activity must conclude in the facility be vacated by 6 PM. That was the stop time, actually start and stop, that was kind of prescribed by our permit from the city. Open play, and I don't know if we need to define this in here. So open play shall be provided for a minimum of 14 hours per week. These hours will be posted by the pickleball club at the courts. Pickleball club tournaments or events where the anticipated attendance is greater than 48 persons must be coordinated through RWC Recreation and generally require the reservation of the Donner Room.
How did you come up with that number?
So,
Yeah.
so basically 48 persons is just about like regular play. So if you're doing something like more than that, and they'll have,
Well, I get,
what they call, like, what are the names of the events?
yeah. what
Like the
we
hits and
did was
giggles?
We kind of looked at what we did with the villages and how many people were actually involved. I mean, we talked about that particular number
Yeah.
a lot, but we figured 48 was pretty fair.
It kind of is like typical use of people like coming and going. But what we, and for like parking, managing parking with events happening at Dollar Event Center, we really need to know what's happening. So it helps us manage the clubhouse.
Yeah, under number 2, above, what if we add another sentence that just says it may not change without
Yeah,
a minimum of 2 weeks.
I was gonna ask that. The hours, I mean, are they regular? How would they change? I mean, I don't know, but,
So they'll decide and post them, but they should stay consistent so they
Yeah,
are.
right.
Yeah, they don't have the exact schedule now, but I think once they have
it's
it,
more about consistency of what they
May not
post.
change without a minimum of 2
Yeah.
weeks
And,
notice.
and this is a decrease in the hours that they're putting on, that they allow right now for open play. This, the 14.
at this facility. Because the other facility is entire open play. So if something happens in those courts are no longer courts, we may need to come back and do something different.
This is talking about the dollar pickleball.
Yeah.
But I mean, the 14 hours, that's an hour, you know, essentially they do it, it's an hour in the morning and an hour at night, but right now they do an hour in the morning and 2 hours at night. That's 21 hours. And that's what I said, it's a reduction in what was usually done right now in the course that they have.
I will say what's a little bit different is right now the courts are open until, during like those other courts are like open during daylight hours. So there's also more hours.
You also have access to 6 courts instead of 3, so you can accommodate different.
Yeah, and you can have more play. Do you know what I
Okay,
mean? So
so-
there's a trade-off.
Yes, and so here's, you know, we have, it's not so much in the morning, but in the evening, you'll have a lot of families come down at that time. So they're gonna come down for 1 hour, 5 to 6. And right now, we have those families being able to come down 4 to 6. You know what I mean? I just don't, I'm looking at the full members and we're looking at a facility and the facility is, everybody's putting in a little bit for this facility. So we're taking away 7 hours from everybody else who does this stuff with their family and they got their little grandkids and they're whacking the ball back and forth. You understand what I'm saying? It's
I
just
do.
down, it's just down 7 hours and I just want to make sure it's
Are
okay.
they guests or are they members?
You're not members, it's open play. The little ones are guests, but they have to pay more when they come in.
Yeah, charge them double.
You know, it's no big, it doesn't matter to me. it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, I want to make sure that if we're going to only do an hour in the morning and an hour at night, is that going to be okay with the general population who maybe not a club member, but want to play with their grandkids?
But do you think it would be okay as long as Creekside is still open?
And that could be up in there. We don't know for
No,
sure.
I know, but I'm just saying, would that be more of a factor if Creekside were not also available?
You're gonna start putting people from the outside on Creekside, and I'm gonna say I want that whole thing resurfaced, because it's
Yeah,
not,
okay.
it's not safe.
No, I
So
know.
now we got $40,000-$50,000 in resurfacing.
Okay.
So I think that, I'm not sure, I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying, this is only says 14 hours. So I don't know if it's a problem or not. We got 6 courts, you know, that's a lot of courts for people to
Need to hear
cover.
from the
Yeah.
Well, we haven't talked about
Members,
this.
yeah.
It's not our responsibility as policy to set that schedule. So you're talking about scheduling, which really is RPC's
And it does say minimum.
venue.
Could be more.
Well, this is a policy from us.
This is a rule about open play, but it doesn't say anything about starting in the morning or playing in the afternoon for
Yes.
open play.
So in the conversation with how, and Frank, I know we were talking about, because it's a minimum of, and it kind of is, it fluctuates, but
Yeah,
you can,
you know, there is a scheduling, I'm sure you know, committee going on right now. And I was kind of involved with it. I'm not anymore. Because there's a lot of different personalities going on right now. But we figured 14 hours and Creekside was enough for residents and their kids. We had to pick a number, so.
No, I get it. I just don't, it's so much easier.
would you rather see the same numbers of hours? So
It's
21.
so much easier to give back than it is to take away in Rossmore. We're taking away in Rossmore right now, and then we're gonna commit ourselves to something, and then you're going to have the people who want the pool to be at 89 degrees all the time. I don't know why I threw that out there, but that was something I
The
talked
bane of
about,
my existence, that's why.
because we can't lower the temperature on the pool now.
So do you want this to be 21, so it's the
I don't
same?
know, I'm tossing it out for,
What say
do we,
you, committee?
do we want, so in this case, just do it this way. We're going to be lowering the number that we have right now. We can lower that number anytime we wanted to, but if we add into it, it's going to create a situation. So I don't know what we want to do.
Can I say one more thing, Ted?
Susan is a
I'm
person.
sorry.
Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
I look like I'm in charge, but I'm not.
You talk like you're in charge. There is so many more things planned by the pickleball club now that there's 6 courts involved, rather than coming from 3 courts. And I mean, again, I'm not part of the scheduling, but I know there's a lot more things being planned for those courts. And all the schedule stuff that the club is doing is on a temporary basis. I mean, we realize there's gonna be changes and we have to roll with the punches. So yes, they're making something up, but there's things like drilling, challenge courts, what do you call it? Team-only courts. And so we were hoping to use that 14 hours. And I don't think that, go ahead, Leanne.
Where's this in line with tennis and table tennis?
Oh, table tennis has
Yeah.
very little open.
What about, what is tennis's open play? Maybe not.
Boy,
Can you come back next time and talk to us about that?
yeah, I can figure that out. But I will say they also have a third of the players and a few more courts, so.
In the gym, they do the same thing, 1 in the morning, 2 hours in the
And
afternoon.
many more courts.
Yeah, so they were
The trouble is, you have an optics perspective here too. You're getting 3 more courts in the pickleball club. And then you're cutting open play hours. It's a difficult change. So let's put it off another month.
Okay, we'll table that till the next time, I'll do some research. Okay, we talked about the 48 people. Must install equipment, we already talked about that. And then the pickleball club, just because they wanna do things. It said, they may not install any temporary or permanent fixture to any interior or exterior wall, floor area, or outdoor area, nor may they install any additional storage without express written permission from the general manager. We built everything they need. No, so then, yeah, we'll work with them on some things, but
So does that take in are we supplying a bulletin board area, a sign-in board area?
so we have that all carved out, and that's part of getting everything set up for open. But there's
Okay.
certain standards that we have, that we're gonna install by saying, okay, where do you want this? We have that standard. So we've been meeting, so we have everything checked off.
Okay,
What we wanna make sure that if somehow it doesn't become the pickleball club's clubhouse, right? By having all these other things kind of attached inside. That being said, there is a storage room that was built for the pickleball club. So we'll be able to do they'll be able to store everything that they need there on site. Then for the Creekside courts, we kept it the same as the way it's written now, that they're available during daylight hours and players should avoid loud noises. Amplified sound is not allowed and the use of ball machines is not allowed at that court.
Why not just say no music? No mic, no music.
I mean, it could be somebody speaking on it, like a coach, or that shouldn't be there, but. I mean, just amplified sound is more inclusive. If somebody,
Okay.
amplified sound, that covers all of it, right?
Yeah.
That covers
Music.
music,
Yeah.
Music,
speakers,
speaking, yeah, so
it's
it's
all
everything.
that stuff.
All courts are open for open play. With the exception that pickleball may reserve use of no more than 2 of the 3 courts in this location for special occasions. So on a tournament day, they just wanted to be able to use, say, go warm up there, so they don't have to use the 6 courts. The maximum number of players per court are 4 in the play area and 4 per court awaiting play. So what we're trying to do, not that we're trying to make it less like social, but we're trying to make it a little bit less, a lot of the bystanders, a lot of groups of people coming down there.
How is
There were
that?
some and actually a lot of what we were finding, the noise complaints we got this year were kind of the club tournaments, if you will. So we're really trying to make that not be permissible here.
How is that enforceable, that form?
It's made it would be complaint driven, so if we were getting complaints of noise and we went, Securitas drove by and saw there was a
Or the 12
large
people
group,
standing
they
with
would
a
be able
full
to go
load.
in, but in terms of actual check-in and that sort of thing, it's more on our system.
And then making a statement here that Creekside may not be used for tournament play. The same thing about storing equipment and the no affixing anything to the interior or exterior. That's it.
Okay. So
And
you'll
we'll
come
do some
back-
explanation in
Yeah.
the
Is
staff
that,
report
is that
too.
other than what's there now, or does that means take down everything that's there now and you're not gonna do any of that?
What's there is there. So,
Okay, so for this, we're gonna have this come back for the June 8th meeting?
yes.
Does there need to be anything in the rules about, I don't even wanna think about it, but the whole, we're having an event at the event center, we're having an event at the Dollar House, and
Yeah, the whole thing.
But
yeah.
that's, if it's more than 4, so I will do this and ask for permission later, so just for Warren Pickleball Club. So this is why we're asking, if they're expecting more than 48 people, right?
Oh.
That's in there, they need
That's
to
true.
let us know.
I see, okay.
If for some reason there's some spontaneous tournament that happens there, again, we'll have the ability to, lock the facility, have a meeting with the club.
I think a question, if correct, is what if there is a large scale event
Yeah.
happening at the
The
event
event
center at
center.
Dollar? Do we need to put something in here that says we may close the pickleball facility at our discretion if
Oh, the
Yeah,
reimburse.
for the big-
Oh, yeah.
the
So
rebid.
something coming up that you might want to think about is the Tomato Festival with 400 tickets being sold for that. And that is like all of Dollar and
That whole
Creekside
area,
parking
yeah.
in the street, and it's a lot.
Remember, I mean,
August?
we
August
had
22nd.
said that that might happen during various discussions about this, that there might
And there could be other
times.
ones that I don't know
Yeah.
about, but that's an all-day event.
So we can add to this one. Parks may be closed. To minimize impact of large events or something like that.
Put it down there like that, and see what it looks like.
We can sit on it for a moment.
But I think I think it's a good idea to have it in there.
It's
Something
not,
like that.
and it's not just the Tomato Festival.
Oh, right, no, there, I mean,
The Lions Club, those are big thing. Look at 4th of July, 4th of July
Yeah.
coming up. That could be that is a huge thing. So I think that there could be times when, because we don't even want anything at the event center, you know, when you have the 4th of July.
yeah,
That pulls 1,000 people.
facilities. So that's
Well, because
more than just
you would call it a
courts.
facility,
Oh,
yeah,
that-
and then we
oh,
talk
oh,
about
okay,
individual
okay,
parts, let's maybe
facility, okay.
close.
Facility, okay.
Yeah, that looks pretty good if that flies with everybody else.
Well, would the club say, and I'm not a club member, but would they say, we want 2 weeks' notice? Do you
Well, I think I was just gonna say, I wonder if we should have something there that shows a notice in advance that,
That they know, that
They
they
would-
would
I don't
know.
think you wanna put that in the policy
Okay.
because
Something
there
could
may be
happen.
things come up.
Oh, all of a
that we
sudden,
don't-
something, yeah, okay,
Our best practice would be.
Yeah, yeah,
we would-
okay.
I was only thinking of the large events that people know almost a year
Oh,
in
but a lot of
advance.
them, they know when
But a
they're gonna
large
be
scale
anyway.
event that we have to conduct could happen like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, okay.
At the grand opening of the Dollar House.
That we can plan.
Yeah.
I know that they are forming some type of communication line with the recreation department when they have things that are gonna come up. And we kind of went through the whole year of events that we knew would be available. And we talked to Ann about it, and in the future, if there's anything we were gonna communicate with, go through the recreation department, just to find out if there's other things scheduled at the same time. And I know that that's gonna be done.
It's gonna be interesting to see how that all works out. Because I could see in 28, well, it's a long way off, but I could see presidential candidates coming here and having a huge impact on what was going on
Event
there.
center.
Yeah,
That's a one-off though. That's a one and done.
yeah, right, but it, you know, but it's the kind of, I'm just,
We've got some plans to anticipate holding dates. Okay, so we'll bring it back
Pickleball,
next
the
week.
candidate who likes to play
I'll
pickleball.
build up
Yeah,
the staff
maybe.
report a bit more. So it is
for the
Orleans
June 8th, for the
Creekside.
June 8th meeting we'll have some new members. All right, so any other comments or questions? For the good of the order here, next meeting, June 8th at 1:30 here in the boardroom. So if not, we'll call the meeting adjourned. What, 3:10, 3:08? Okay, thank you.
I'm going home. I'm not going.